we have some news from Saudi Arabia. There was an announcement by Turki Al-Sheikh, who is the chairman of the board of directors of the General Entertainment Authority. They announced an extension of their partnership with the UFC. So they are holding an event in Saudi Arabia on June 22nd. They're also going to add another event either late this year or early next year as part of Riyadh season. They're also going to sponsor UFC 306, which is the event at the Sphere in Las Vegas, September 14th. And most of all, breaking barriers, Riyadh is going to host its first Power Slap event as part of this extended deal. So it's time to export Power Slap to Saudi Arabia.
Sorry, it's an extended deal, announced with the UFC deal at the same time?
Yes.
So Power Slap does have a relationship with the UFC.
Obviously,
other than Dana, but like if in an official capacity, do they have?
It's one of those deals. It's kind of like the XFL when this latest iteration that Vince McMahon was running, where the UFC uses a lot of their socials to promote Power Slap. It's like you are benefiting greatly from the UFC machine.
I see.
But it is technically, a Dana White, Lorenzo Fertitta, those are the key investors in it. But yeah, it was included here in this announcement. And then while speaking to ESPN, Al-Sheikh mentioned that there's going to be an enhancement to the deal with WWE that will be signed in June. Now, I translate enhancement to mean money. That is my interpretation of enhancement. And they are
money
hopeful.
In exchange for more value, you would think as well.
I think so. And he spoke about the fact of wanting to bring big wrestling events to the country, specifically mentioning the potential of a WrestleMania or a Royal Rumble. And I think you and I have spoken about this, the idea of a WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia, not surprising at all that is what they are aiming for, because I think, number one, you are looking at both promoting this country as a tourist destination and a place where Americans feel, or Canadians, what have you, feel safe traveling to Saudi Arabia, and this becomes a destination for tourists. And I think they're going to be looking at big time events like that. They're trying it with boxing. They are bringing big concerts, but something like a WrestleMania, that would be the goal. It's not so much of an idea of just servicing your audience that's already getting 2 big WWE shows a year, but it's also bringing people over there and talking about how great of a place this is to travel to.
Even maybe taking away, in-person tourism, just the media attention itself and just the conversation around WrestleMania taking place this year in Saudi Arabia, and just maybe the continued normalization of, Saudi Arabia being a destination not dissimilar to Lyon, or how we think of really kind of like, any other destination free of human rights issues around the world.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So it's like if you're planning a vacation, maybe Power Slap is going to be the event that brings you over to Saudi Arabia. And if not, they'll try WrestleMania.
Maybe they'll bundle it with a WrestleMania weekend.
That could always be, a Power Slap crossover at a WrestleMania. All potential.
Yeah, Hall of Fame / Power Slap /
Minoru
SmackDown.
Suzuki comes in for Power Slap, the celebrity edition. Yeah.
Right.
So all potential. The key is, what does this, extension or change of the deal mean financially for them? Like, they're taking in roughly $50 million per event. And also, it was noted on the call. Here, I'll read this. This was from Brandon Ross at Lightshed Partners, noting the fact that investors feared existential risk to UFC when the Saudi investment into PFL, you'll remember, was announced last summer, and how Liv had really upended the PGA with all of the money. And this took a big hit on the TKO stock price. And he goes on to state that additionally, investors feared the Saudi relationship was the one thing that TKO could not replace with Vince McMahon's departure. And the fact that the UFC is now so deeply involved with Saudi Arabia, this has largely, it says, it is clear the Saudis just wanted to be more relevant in MMA and are getting there in real time with the UFC, and essentially stating that the PFL, they did not capitalize on this at all, and the UFC has kind of taken over this part of the world. But also from the wrestling side, like, that was, for whatever you want to say, like, Vince McMahon was the one that spearheaded this. had the relationship with the Saudis and helped put that UFC deal in play as well. And on the call, they stated like Nick Khan is the one that has kind of inherited this relationship now. He is the one leading all of this. But it was interesting to note like that was something that was a specialty attached to Vince McMahon that they felt was obviously like he was the guy that was leading that.
Like, and I'm so curious what that would entail. Does he just have, MBS on speed dial? Does he just like text, which would be a very scary exchange to envision with the guy all the time? I mean, that comes
I don't know if Vince is allowed to text anymore.
That comes as no real surprise, like we know Saudi Arabia just simply wants the platform. So to speak, and WWE really wants the money. Like, we might have speculated at the end of these 10 years whether or not this deal would continue, but what were we thinking? Of course it's going to continue. We're talking about the WWE now that is probably more reliant on this than ever when it comes to their stockholder share prices and just the future prospects. I mean, they've grown accustomed to receiving this an enormous amount of money every year.
Yeah, it's not at all surprising on that front, and you could, as I've mentioned, like you can put your kind of like moral opinion of this aside from the fact that to walk away from this is, you're there to deliver this value to your shareholders that this represents. I will say it is amazing to look at the change in Ari Emanuel from his reaction as one of the few when the Jamal Khashoggi murder occurred and turning away investment, and how he went into a period of where it was almost like indifference. He was not going to speak negatively about it, but he was also not going to be championing the cause. And now it's like, you could not be more deep into this now. Like, this is one of the leading entertainment properties between UFC and WWE that is going to be sending over regular events and only deepening its commitment to.
Well, it's a reminder that he too has masters to serve, and that is the share price. It's I'm sure his entire company. I think it also says a lot about just public sort of like relaxing of concerns. Obviously, they were probably the biggest when the Khashoggi murder took place. And now I just sense a more general acceptance and general apathy that this is sort of like the reality of all of our entertainment properties.